Hello, I am Yogini Sunita, and this is Meditation, Yoga, and Stuff podcast. I believe my dharma or my life's purpose is to share my understanding of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda, holistic healing science of India. I make these amazing wisdoms accessible and adaptable for present times. So let's start. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is Nikola. Welcome back, Nikola. I'm so happy that you're here joining us today.
I'm very excited. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Nikola. And I'm going to request you to introduce yourself once again for the listeners. So tell us about yourself.
So my name's Nikola Ellis, and I am the founder and director of Adore Yoga. And one of the things that we do is train people to use yoga therapy and meditation often in clinical settings, but not always. So our meditation teachers and yoga therapists who graduate from our programs work in private practice. Some of them work in education, others work in hospitals and clinics. And we also develop our own programs. So there are Adore Yoga therapy and meditation programs running in a number of private and public hospitals in Sydney and elsewhere. So that's the Adore Yoga side, but I have a number of other hats. So I have a master's in counselling and applied psychotherapy, and I also work in the oncology space. So I work with Cancer Council New South Wales. And so my personal passion is psycho-oncology. So that's psychosocial well-being, particularly for people who are impacted by cancer. So that's what I'm really passionate about. But number of different hats. I just love working with yoga and meditation as adjunct therapies to support people with their health and well-being.
Thank you, Nikola. Oh my God, you're doing such amazing work, and I love your work, really. All these yoga therapy things you're offering, and your yogic background is quite deep as well. Can you talk a little bit about that? Where you started? How long ago you started yoga?
A long time ago. I have been practicing yoga for over 30 years and teaching for just over 20 years. And I came to yoga not as an exercise practice. In fact, I didn't even want to come to yoga. It wasn't very cool back in the 80s when I first tried it. But I had started to experience symptoms of anxiety. There were a whole bunch of circumstances in my adolescence and early adulthood that led to me experiencing prolonged anxiety and some depression, and then panic attacks. And the panic attacks were very frightening. I didn't know what they were. I had these incredibly forceful symptoms that just hit me out of the blue. I really thought I was going mad. I thought that I was going to end up being taken to a hospital and not allowed to leave, that I would never get well again. I quite honestly thought that I was losing my mind. And yoga was a very important part of my recovery. A very wise friend, suggested I try yoga, and it didn't fix everything overnight. I can't even say I liked it when I first started doing it. But what I recognized is that when I did this, and it was a very simple practice, it wasn't what we might think of yoga being today, a vinyasa practice, moving from pose to pose with music in the background and 40 people in a class all working together. It wasn't like that at all. It was a mature teacher in a drafty sports hall, and there was not too much movement, but it was very mindful. And what we do, I now know that it was designed to dial down the sympathetic nervous system, so those fight or flight or freeze responses, which are so prevalent for people with anxiety or panic disorder. And through practicing and continuing to practice those techniques, I stopped experiencing the acute symptoms of anxiety and panic. I started to see a possibility for being normal again. I had got to a point where I thought, I'll never be normal. This is it. I'm broken somehow. That yoga showed me that I could have these moments of of peace, of freedom from these acute symptoms. And so that started my lifelong dive into the therapeutic approach to yoga, how meditation impacted the body and the mind, and with my studies in Western psychology, understanding it within a Western scientific framework as well, because there's been so much great research done on yoga and meditation for mental health. And so that then became my path after using these techniques so successfully for my own recovery, supporting other people to learn them, and then train to become yoga therapists and meditation teachers themselves. So my vision is that everybody who experiences anxiety or panic or other similar symptoms can find a teacher, a yoga therapist or a meditation teacher who is trained to provide techniques that are going to be appropriate for each individual, because there's no one size fits all. I want everybody to have access to the kinds of practices that are really going to positively impact their well-being.
Beautifully said, Nicola. Really, I appreciate. My personal experience is similar like yours. Like, yoga has helped me a lot. And that's why I started the podcast and I started teaching as well, because I truly believe that I think yoga is such a wonderful thing. It has impacted our life. So we want to share it with everyone.
Yes.
Everyone should get opportunity to experience this. And you put it very beautifully that, you felt like you were almost like broken because of the anxiety. And that's the impact of anxiety. It can literally cripple us in a way, And so today I would like to talk about yoga. It helped you, and how can we, what can we do? Would you like to talk a little bit about meditation, yoga, and its relation? And how can we use it to reduce this impact of anxiety, this almost crippling effect on ourselves? So would you like to share a little bit?
I can start to answer that question, but the answer to that question is there's many different facets to it. So what I would really love to do, and you know what, I'd be a wealthy woman if I could give you the 3-step solution to anxiety through meditation. Not medication, that's a different practice. And there certainly are techniques that we will have all heard of, and different styles or different traditions or organizations that offer a type of meditation. And there are students for whom that is exactly the right practice, and they become evangelical and they say, oh, you have anxiety, you should do meditation X or go to group Y because they do this practice that's nailed it. It fixes anxiety, And
what do you mean there is no magic pill?
Right.
Oh my God, I thought there was.
I know. What I'm saying is that there's no magic pill. There's no single technique for anxiety. So what I can't do today is say, Sunita, you've got some anxiety symptoms, do meditation practice A and it's going to fix you. That's unfortunately, gosh, I wish that had worked. But
So well said, Nicola, because I know that what worked for me may not work for you. So that's what wisdom of yoga comes in play. Like, we are unique fingerprint of divine, and what we need is going to be very unique. So the practice maybe worked for me, may not work for you. And this is where wisdom of yoga is. There are so many options. So would you like to talk a little bit about that? Because I know you have deep understanding on this. I would like you to share something about that.
Yes, and what I want to reassure people is that just because there's no simple magic pill or a 3-step solution, I don't want anybody to feel put off by that or think, oh, this is going to be too hard. It's too hard. Because it's not. It's just a question of finding out what practice suits you. And you know what? It's not even what practice suits you every time. So I think the most important thing to understand is that if we find or create for ourselves a toolbox that we can pull the right practice at the right time from, then we're in a much better position to manage our mental health and well-being. Because it's like, I guess this is a kind of a superficial analogy, but I love dal. Oh my goodness, I love dal. Absolutely love dal. And I might say, oh, I could eat dal 3 meals a day for the rest of my life. But the truth is I couldn't.
It's not going to work.
No, I would be very bored with dal. And some mornings I wake up and I go, I'd just like a piece of toast, please.
Yeah.
And then there's another day where I think, oh, I need some noodles, some ramen noodles. So there are different states of mind, different biological functions in our body that tell us, oh, I need this now. I need something else. I need a quiet night in with a good movie, or I need to actually go out and connect with other people. And it's like that with yoga. There are going to be practices that we need at different points in our lives to suit different moods, different seasons, different circumstances that we're in. And so it's good to have a regular, consistent, foundational practice, but it's also really helpful to have a flexible toolbox from which we can draw exactly what we need in that moment, depending on how much time we have, or the environment that we're in, or the type of anxiety that we're experiencing, because it can manifest in a lot of different ways. So I think a toolbox is the most important thing. And there are lots of ways, how do I know what I should have in my toolbox? And everyone's toolbox is going to look different. And one way to determine what should go in your toolbox is to work with a teacher who is experienced, who has a profound understanding of human nature and an understanding of how the mind works and the impacts of different techniques of meditation on our moods and our physiology and our brains, and other ways to try lots of different things. I think it's good to maybe shop around and try different techniques, because often we don't know what's going to be most beneficial for us until we've tried it. But a good teacher will be able to support you to determine what's going to be most helpful more quickly, I think.
Beautifully said. I think flexibility of mind is very important as well. So, as you said, that, different time of our life, different time of the day, different time, what we need may change. So this is where we need to understand that there is not only one technique. There are so many different ways of technique. So when we say meditation, nowadays image comes in the mind that beautifully clothed women sitting in a special cushion and and totally blissed out. So is that what meditation is, Nikola? What do you think?
That doesn't describe my personal practice. No, look, there are lots of different ways to practice meditation, but there is one fundamental underlying approach or practice, if you like, that sits underneath all of the different schools and flavors of meditation, and that is presence. And one of the ways that we can achieve presence, so by presence I mean being here now in this present moment, without the dramas of the past playing themselves out in our present moment, or the dramas of the past projecting themselves into our future anticipation. So the secret sauce, or the holy grail of meditation, is to just be here now. That's a well-worn phrase, but that's what we're aiming for.
Well, that's very easy to say, that be here now.
Easier to say than do.
So what can we do to bring ourselves now? Because my understanding is anxiety comes from the worry of future, so... Yes. So what happens when we are in now? Would you like to talk a little bit about that? What changes when we bring ourselves into now, and how can we do that?
So what changes when we come into the here and now is that we quiet the stories in our minds around our circumstances. So as a long time yogi, and you and I both know that the foundational definition of yoga, according to Patanjali, the godfather of modern yoga, is the definition of yoga is to still the stories of the mind. And so much of our suffering, particularly related to anxiety, comes from the thoughts, the stories that we are having about our present moment experience, rather than our present moment experience. And those stories come from past experiences which can project into the present or into the future. And that is what causes our suffering. It's the thoughts. And you are not your thoughts. And your thoughts can be managed and can be changed and can be quieted. And when those thoughts settle, we can come into a present moment where there is no suffering from our thoughts. So how do we do that? Well, again, another word that everybody's very familiar with is mindfulness.
Yeah.
But mindfulness is not necessarily what a lot of people think it is. So
It has become buzzword, isn't it?
yes, and that image that you just painted about the lady on the meditation
I
cushion,
know.
dressed, maybe in Byron Bay with all the neutral coloured flowy clothes and maybe some mala bit, like, no, that's, mindfulness doesn't have to be sitting in lotus position with your eyes closed, focusing on your breath. That's become the default definition of mindfulness. But anything that we do which attracts our focused attention, upon which our minds are exclusively focused, that is mindfulness. So we can do anything in a mindful way. And this is what I mean about there being different ways of practicing meditation to suit different people and different moods and needs, is that all of these types of meditation are just ways to bring us to a mindful present moment experience. So I am settling all those stories that are running around in my head, and I am actually able to experience the here and now with my full attention. That's it. But I may need a different technique to achieve that to you, to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I might need to use my body to experience that. And using the body to experience, to bring ourselves into mindfulness is extremely useful, particularly with anxiety. So I know as somebody who experiences anxiety, if I'm told to sit down, close my eyes and meditate on the breath in my nostrils, I'm just tearing my hair out and leaving the room, because it makes me feel more anxious. If I'm already anxious. Now I can do that, but I have to be relaxed before I do that. That's not my anxiety go-to.
And then a lot of negative self-talk also happens that, oh, how couldn't I quieten my mind down? I experienced the similar way. Like, I started blaming myself. Oh my God, how can I not calm my mind down? There must be something wrong with me. And then it increases anxiety. So I totally agree with you. So what can we do?
So what can we do is find a practice that's appropriate. So for me, for example, I really think that using the body is an extremely helpful way of experiencing mindfulness, because it's tangible. It's not sitting still. Sitting still in silence amplifies the noises in your head. Focusing your attention on your breath can bring your attention to the fact that your breath is actually quite restricted and fast, and that can make you feel even more anxious and set off a negative breathing pattern of anxious, fast breathing. But when we come into the body, we can do that in a way that has no expectations of silencing the mind or controlling the breath. So, for example, simply looking at one's hands, maybe rubbing the hands together. You can't see this, it's not on a podcast, but maybe you can hear the hands rubbing together. Moving my hands, spreading them out like starfish, closing them in. And as I do these things, feeling that when I rub my hands together, I can feel the texture and temperature of my skin, and my palms, I notice that they get warmer when I do that. When I stretch my fingers wide into a starfish shape, I can feel the muscles stretching and flexing. And then when I curl my fingers into gentle fists, I can feel those muscle groups changing. I can feel the outer part of my hand. And it's much easier for me to absorb my attention in that ever-changing experience, that sensory experience of my hands moving, because it's tangible and it's real. And as I focus my attention on that, my thoughts naturally start to settle. And then maybe I'll bring in the breath. So I'll inhale and spread my hands out wide, and exhale and curl my fingers into gentle fists. So now I'm regulating my breath, but I'm doing it as part of a physical movement.
Hmm.
And it may not look much like somebody's idea of, the perfect Bali meditation. But what it's doing is exactly the same. It is regulating my breath, regulating my body, regulating my attention, and bringing what my body is doing, what my breath is doing, and what my mind is doing into a single unified experience that I am now present to. And I'm not second guessing myself. How can I do spreading my hands and curling them into fists wrong? Because if you're just sitting there and your mind's racing and you're exactly as you said, I'm an idiot, I'm no good at meditation, I can't meditate.
Yeah.
I'm giving it up, and that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Because everybody can meditate.
I totally agree with you. And you said it very beautifully that body is tangible. When we are guided to lift arm up, we understand this is arm and this I'm lifting up, or open or close fingers and things like that. So we can do this, we can connect with it. But sometimes if in guided meditation some imagery is given and we may not connect with that, or we will ask ourselves, am I doing it right or wrong? So with the mind-body connection, with a lot of awareness of movements and mind's awareness towards the movement, we can create this beautiful harmony with our body. Because most of the time, I notice that we are out of our body, like we're constantly sensing the world through our senses, and we are not really in our body. So these experience of movement helps us to bring back in our body. And I think that movement with awareness has a lot of positive impact on our system, and we can connect with our body. It's very easy to connect with the body compared to connecting with the breath. So once we learn to connect with our body, then we can connect with the breath. So it's a beautiful technique you explain, and it is so doable, like just moving fingers or opening, closing your hands, and then connecting with the breath, and that calms the mind down. Like I was doing it with you, and this is amazing. So thank you for that.
Look, anxiety is a physiological experience.
Tell me about that. What are you saying?
So when we think of anxiety as a mental health issue. This is something that happens in my mind. But we cannot separate the mind from the body, and anybody who's experienced anxiety knows that it is a physiological experience. You feel it, you may feel a lump in your throat, or tightness in the chest, or a knot in the belly. Some people experience issues with diarrhea, or tingling in the fingers, or sweating, or going cold. So it's highly physiological. When anxiety is triggered for whatever reason, it sets off a cascade of chemical reactions in our body that impact the nervous system goes on high alert, and every organ in our body, the whole nervous system, the heart, the way that the blood moves around the body, the way that the muscles feel, the digestive system, everything is impacted by that hormonal cascade that is caused by an anxiety trigger. And so if we're experiencing anxiety in the body, it really helps to work through that in the body, rather than disembodying, which is quite common in anxiety, which is to you see people who are very anxious trying to fight to get out of their bodies, almost. It's going on the toes, and it becomes all trapped in the head. But when we come back into the body, where the upshot of the cascade, or the chemical cascade, is being experienced, we can start to control those physiological experience, to be present to them, to start to re-regulate them, to start to ground, feeling your feet. That's one of the first things I do if I start to feel anxious, is to bring my attention into my feet, to stand up or to sit down and plant my feet onto the floor. So coming into the body, it's a highly effective way of regulating all of that, all of those anxiety symptoms.
So well said, Nikola. And I totally agree. This sensing your feet or your toes is really grounding, as we call it in Wisdom of Yoga. grounding practices, basically it helps us to connect with the support underneath us, and it helps us to bring in our body, so to speak, and it helps us to basically ground ourselves, as if putting an earthing wire into the mother into the ground, so that we kind of like let go of this anxiety. And it is a constant learning, because anxiety, especially we're going through this pandemic and now the great exhaustion time, because we whole as a humanity went through almost like a trauma. And so obviously there is a lot of anxiety in relation to the financial things or jobs and things like that. And in this situation, there are things which are not in our hands, and there are things which are in our hands. And what is in our hand is our body, and connecting our body with the breath and calming down our mind. So that these are my thought process. Do you have anything to add on to this, my understanding?
Look, what I would add to that is another technique. You said, well, what can we do? And you've just said, we have the pandemic, there's been this ongoing stress, there's all kinds of instability in the world right now, which people are being affected by. And what happens is, particularly with anxiety, is that we are now primed, as humans, we're primed for danger, for the negative. It's one of the reasons why we're so successful as a species, is that we're primed for the danger, for the bad stuff, and that helps us to manage it. But if we just get stuck in that, experiencing the bad stuff, the stresses, looking for the next problem, which is what many of us have gotten stuck into since the pandemic, then it becomes very hard to re-regulate, to navigate our way out of these anxious states. So a technique that is super, super helpful is to look for the joy. And I know that everyone talks about gratitude practices and that this is very popular. And I don't know about you, maybe I'm just an ungrateful person. But when I'm super anxious or when my mental health is not good, I find gratitude practices really hard, especially if I'm trying to find something new every day to be grateful for. When you're really in a hole, it's quite hard to find something to be grateful for. But a sister practice to gratitude that is extremely helpful, and it's easy and effective, is savoring.
Oh, tell us about that.
And there's really good science behind this as well, by the way. It's finding the joy in tiny things frequently. And so if I had to stop and savor one thing right now, it would be the place that I'm sitting. I've got a really nice cushion behind me, and I can savor the fact that I've got this support behind me that is comfortable, and I can sit in a relaxed way. And if we bring my attention to that part of my back and where the cushion is, it just feels nice. And I can just spend a moment going, ooh, that's a nice thing. Or I could do it with a cup of tea. I sit there and I feel the warmth of the cup in my hand, and then I take a sip of the tea and I go, ooh, it's very refreshing, it's warm, it feels comforting. It could be something, so I'm just looking across the place that I'm sitting right now, and I can see, I can't even tell what it is from here, but there's a color that's caught my eye, and it's just the most beautiful reddish kind of color that's got this warmth and this glow about it. And I'm just going to spend a moment going, ooh, that's nice. Ooh. And I'm giving myself, it's not something that I have to meditate on for hours, but I'm just giving myself long enough to feel the appreciation of that color, or that sensation in my body, or that smell, or that taste. Just go, oh, I can feel that that's a good thing, and I'm appreciating that.
Beautiful.
That. And these are little tiny moments of joy that break up the worry, the concern, the challenges of the day. And they bring that lightness and that joy and a moment of relief. And when we practice this over and over again, we start to retrain our brains to look for the positive, to find the joy, to be more optimistic and hopeful, and know that it's not just all gloomy. Because it can seem like that, and that's not true. It's not true that things are just blanket rubbish.
Well, the mind can play a trick on us, right? Like if we are, say, for example, going through this pandemic, and we open any news channel or any social media, it's constantly bombarded toward us. So we start seeing doom and gloom, basically, And this is where I think it's very well said, that finding joy in simple things, because these simple things may not be like your big things, but these collective simple things. This is, I think, we kind of like almost training ourselves to bring positiveness into our life. And so rewiring is very well said. I think that's very well said, because our mind, we almost like retraining our mind. And from childhood, we hardly ever train our mind. It's just wandering off without any, reins to it. And this helps positively, almost like bring positivity in the life and joy in the life and counting blessings in a way. It's very, I like this practice. I think I will work on this one,
And when it comes down to it, all that is mindfulness. I am just being mindful of the color. I'm being mindful of the sensation in my back where the cushion is. I'm being mindful of the taste of the tea in my mouth. And so when I do hear people say, oh, I can't meditate, maybe they had a bad experience or they just decided their brains are too busy. Nobody is too busy brain to put a piece of chocolate in their mouth and just stop for maybe 10 seconds and go, and really feel the pleasure of that moment in their minds, in their mouths, feel how that feels in your heart, in your belly, and just allow yourself to take a couple of breaths. Everyone, that is mindfulness. It's not sitting on a hard stool in lotus position, reciting a complicated mantra. It's just going, I'm loving this cushion. We can all do that. And you said it's almost like retraining our brain. That is exactly what it is. We are retraining our brains from the habits that we have learned over the years that we've dropped into, and also our instincts as a human animal, as I said before, that priming to look for the danger, and retraining ourselves so that our brains, our minds, we have the capacity to choose what we focus on. And anxiety is the inability to choose your focus. It's when your thoughts overtake you. It's when the tail is wagging the dog.
Oh, that's so well said. I like that analogy. Very well said. And so when we say mindful, again, the social media and things like that, image comes, people sitting in blissed meditative state. But you and I know that that's not the only thing for mindfulness. There are many ways we can come into mindfulness. Even physical movement with awareness, things like Tai Chi or Qigong or asana practice with a lot of awareness, rather than just doing it mindlessly. Doing it mindfully will bring more joy. Even washing your dishes with mindfulness, that can create that experience. So this is where I would like you to maybe mention the mindfulness. Like, it has become buzzword now. We can hear it everywhere. So can you talk a little bit about mindfulness? And so there are many ways we can bring mindfulness into our life. So can you give us a little bit glimpse of few practices you can share with us? Like you did share, obviously, the moving hands and becoming aware of that. That's a beautiful practice. You share about the bringing awareness towards the simple joys of life. That's another thing we can do. And also, what else can we do? And I would also like you to talk about your program you offer on mind meditation and anxiety, and little bit more information on that.
So the first part of your question about what else can we do, something that I think is underestimated and that I think is a really important prerequisite for a successful meditation practice is relaxation. And I think the two go hand in hand. It's very difficult to do any kind of formal meditation practice if we are tense. So psychological tension, tension, the breath becomes tense, tension in the muscles and the physical body. So whatever it takes to unwind and relax, I am all for that. So that might be a lovely bath, or it might be some stretching, or it might be a cup of herbal tea, or it might be there are lots and all of the relaxation techniques like we teach on our course, progressive muscle relaxation. We teach yoga nidra, which part of yoga nidra is focused on relaxation. Breathing practices can be very relaxing, and all of those things, relaxation practice and movements, simple movements can be very relaxing. So they dial down that nervous system. They bring us into a state where we're more receptive, where we're able to make better decisions. So maybe I can do a practice just lying with your feet up, for example. I will caution against, one of the things about relaxation is what people think is relaxing.
Yeah.
So scrolling on social media, I do that to relax, or I flick on Netflix. Those experiences, in terms of the way that your brain and your body respond to them, that's so there's a psychologist called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who coined the term flow. You might have heard this. So one of the keys to well-being is to move into a state of flow. And it's very similar to a meditative state where we're so absorbed in something, an activity, that time flies, where our minds and our breath and our bodies are completely absorbed in the practice that we're doing. So it might be, painting a beautiful picture or walking in nature. We become absolutely absorbed in the practice that we're doing. And that's flow. And I've spoken to people who say, well, I'll flick on something on Netflix because I kind of move into flow, or I'm in flow when I'm scrolling through social media. And the psychologist who coined that term calls that junk flow.
I like that.
It's junk flow. So when we're doing things like watching TV or on social media, or something else, or drinking alcohol, the other things, or eating lots of chocolates, or whatever it is that we're doing, that's a junk flow. And when I say relaxation is really good, being mindful that the relaxation technique that you're choosing is genuinely experienced by your brain and your body as relaxation. Because those things like TV, it actually overstimulates your brain, even though you kind of have gone into this sort of state of zoning out. So that's not what I'm talking about. So relaxation first, and then moving into practices that may be done in the body, like mindful movement, breathing techniques, contemplation of something. So that might be savoring, as I was just saying. Something that we used to do as kids in the tradition that I was brought up in is grace before meals. So you have a food brought to you, and you look at the food and you appreciate it, and you give thanks for what it is that you've been given. Now, you don't need a religious tradition to offer up some gratitude and then appreciate the meal that you're eating. All of these things are part of the practice of mindfulness, making a decision, a conscious decision about what you do next. I've got option A or option B. Which one is the path that is going to be most nourishing to my nervous system, which is most supportive of my community? I have a little mantra.
Oh,
Sunita.
okay.
I have
Let's
a little mantra,
hear it.
which is this the path of love?
Oh, beautiful.
So when I'm doing something or making a decision about something, I often ask myself, is this the path of love? And whether that's love for myself in terms of self-care, or love for the people around me, or love for the planet. If this path is not adding to the experience of love somewhere in existence, then I need to question why I'm doing it. So another way of being mindful.
Very well said.
When I'm making decisions. So these are all things that we teach in our program. So as I say, there's two main programs that we teach. One is yoga therapist training. So there's a first part of that which anybody who's interested in yoga therapy can come along and learn the foundations and the basic practices and philosophies. And then there's yoga therapist certification. That's a big 2-year course, and that's for yoga teachers who want to certify as yoga therapists and work in clinical and healing environments. And then we also have meditation teacher training programs, and again there's a smaller program, and that's open to anybody who wants to learn to use meditation more in their own lives, so deepen their practice. For people who want to add meditation, we have a lot of psychologists, teachers, social workers, life coaches who want to use meditation in their professional practice. And then there's a bigger meditation course, the Meditation for Mental Health, which is really applying all of these and many more techniques of meditation for specifically for supporting people with their mental health going forward. So those are the programs that we run, and they're all run online. I'm based in Sydney, but we have students from all over the world at the moment. I think our most distant student, we have one in South Africa and one in Singapore.
All right,
So
very
all over the
good.
world,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think online thing has opened up these beautiful trainings for all over the world. So that's really good. And these, thank you for sharing that. Because mental health. We used to look at mental health, a few years ago very negatively. But now it is a need of us, and we all like a lot of acknowledgement about that. So I'll give you an example. I teach yoga to of law, like a lot of lawyers there, and when I started teaching there some 10 years ago, it was very interesting. There was why yoga enter in knowledge of law, because there were a lot of suicide rates in that field, because their way of relaxation was that negative flow you were talking about, which was taking a hard drink at the end of the day, so mentally exhausted, and then to relax their body, they were taking something which, yes, maybe physically initially relaxed, but it's a junk flow, it's basically negative way of relaxing the body. So we need to understand that is it a path of love? I love that statement. Like, is it what I'm doing is it love and kindness towards yourself or towards others? It's again yoga's way of yamas and niyamas, looking at that. Are we kind to ourselves? I always talk about ahimsa, and ahimsa is first principle of yoga, which is a beautiful guide principle, where we need to look at, like, are we being kind to ourselves? And that stiff drink at the end of the day was not kind, and obviously it was increasing the mental health issue, and outcome of that was a lot of suicides, which was very sad. Young people were dying, and so that's why they introduced the yoga and meditation into their for their employees, and initially there was resistance, but now it has become go-to thing. So it's just that it's a mindset. Sometimes we have to change to look at it that this is a very positive way of bringing peace and calm in our life, and doing courses like what you're offering. You don't have to go and teach anyone, but this is for yourself. Like, you will be so equipped with so many techniques that you can do it in any walk of your life. Whatever is happening, you will have some technique to look after yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically. So why not having these techniques in the life? It's such a beautiful way of bringing this wisdom into the life. And so thank you for doing those courses. I really appreciate that. Anything you want to add in relation to the courses? Like, where can we find you?
Adore Yoga. So we're on all the usual socials. There's Adore Yoga and adoreyoga.com.
Okay, I'll
is
put
the
that
website.
in the notes in this podcast. So those who are interested can go on the website. You will also see my face there because I'm also one of the teachers. I'll be teaching some part of these courses, meditation, or whatever Nicola tells me.
Well, oh no, Sunita, you're such an important part of the program, and our students absolutely love what you share and you offer. It's incredibly valuable. So thank you for
Thank
being
you.
such an important part of the program.
Really, really appreciate you being here and appreciate that you're offering such a beautiful program. And I love the program you design because so much effort has gone into that, and also all this wisdom. So you take the wisdom of yoga and you also take the wisdom of science and you bring that together, that marriage of two. There's a lot of scientific basis. So it's not a woo-woo land,
It's not.
It's a lot of practical things which you can bring it into your life without feeling woo-woo.
That's one of the things that I'm passionate about. I say that what we teach is evidence-based, and a lot of what we teach, both in the yoga therapy and in meditation, does have a good hard science base.
Yeah.
However, all good scientists hold space for mystery. It's not a black and white, this is right, this
Yeah.
is wrong. It's like, okay, so this is, to the best of our knowledge, this is the model that seems to be working. And so that doesn't mean that we have to exclude concepts like chakras, for example, or the nadis, the energy channels in the body. And what I don't do is teach people, well, you definitely have these whirling vortices of energy, and that. And what I don't do is say, oh, well, that's just a bit of woo-woo nonsense. What we do is say, okay, well, these are concepts that are mysterious that we can hold space for, and that for some people, working with chakras or working with some of the concepts in yoga that maybe aren't validated by science, these might be helpful for people. And our subjective experience of it is that this is very useful. This is a model or a framework that is beneficial.
Yeah.
But what we're not doing is making spurious claims for the rock solid healing powers of crystals or chakras.
Take this pill and you will be
Yeah,
enlightened.
that's not how it works. But we have this whole vast array of meditation and yogic tools at our disposal, and we find the ways that work for people. Where there is an evidence base, we'll share that. So if there is an evidence base for something working, wouldn't you want to know about that? How and why that works from a neuroscience perspective. So we delve into that, but we still hold space for the mystery, for the esoteric. We're not just cutting through all of those ancient traditions that we don't have a Western explanation for. We're holding space for all of those mysteries as well.
Beautifully said. And that's how the true yoga approach is, because in wisdom of yoga, we'll find that there are so many different paths, and the reason for that is again, like we are unique fingerprint of divine. So what we experience is that is our own experience. And so yes, these techniques are there, and some may work for you, some may not work for you. So that's why you will see that there are so many paths, like thousands of paths on the wisdom of yoga. And we are learning, like basically toolkits are there, and you will see that some techniques work really beautifully at this point in our life, and then sometimes we have to let go of that technique and move on to next one. And so the concept is, I think, same in your courses, that you're giving lots of tools and lots of opportunity to experience different tools. And then students can choose, or if they decide to, teach it, they can use any of these toolkits to share it with their clients. So that's really, different toolkits. So that's training them to have basically mindfulness at their disposal in a way, like different ways they can bring it into their life.
That's right. I mean, the meditation program, certainly the first part of it, is you learn how to practice and teach 5 different types of meditation, so that you can find a practice that's going to work for whoever it is that you're teaching, or for yourself, depending on what works best for you. And also at the end of that program, students have a ready to teach 5-week meditation course. So that which they develop themselves. I don't give them a blueprint and say, go away and teach what I tell you, because I somehow have the secret recipe for meditation, which of course I don't. But we use structures and frameworks and tried and tested methods that support our students to develop their own 5-week program that is ready for them to teach their students, their student base, and that might be their kids. It might be their partner.
Yes, very well
Or
said,
if they're a yoga teacher, it could be their students. If they're a social worker, it could be their clients. So we teach them how to tailor make a course, a program that's designed for their particular students.
Beautiful, very well said. I really appreciate you creating these kind of program. Again, I have said it many times, but I am saying this because when I'm teaching these programs with you, the feedback of student it speaks itself. Like, we have received so many positive feedbacks and so many, basically letter of thanks, I can call them, very well received. A lot of people have experienced and learned a lot out of this, because a lot of time people think meditation is just one technique or mindfulness is just one technique, but that's not the reality. There are many ways to bring this into the life. So these programs, I think, helps a lot of people to drop the ideas of what is meditation, what is not meditation, what is meditation, understanding that. And also understanding that relaxation is very important as well, and I like the concept of positive flow, like how to bring in positive flow in life is very, very important. And learning this, these are the courses we should be teaching our kids, to deal with stress and deal with all this, because we will be equipping them with so much of wisdom. This is something, if a parent learns and our teacher learns and share with the students, that's next generation will be so grateful.
I couldn't agree more, because my anxiety started as a child. The symptoms were very clear, but mental health wasn't talked about in the 1970s, and so my symptoms, which maybe would have been recognized and picked up today, were absolutely overlooked or even punished as a child growing up back in the 70s. And I think had I been taught some of these practices, certainly some of the practical ones, and been offered tools that work, that I could immediately experience in my own body, that I'm no longer experiencing those acute symptoms, it would have changed everything. And I think I would have had a very different adolescence if I'd been supported with some of those skills. So this is why I'm so evangelically passionate about these different techniques, is that they have worked so beautifully for me, and my own anxiety has been reduced significantly. So I know from my own personal experience that these techniques work. My own anxiety has been reduced significantly. As and when those symptoms arise, I know how to work with them and manage them. And I've seen that success with so many students time and time again. And that's why I'm so passionate about supporting mental health, particularly anxiety, with these meditation practices.
Thank you so much, Nikola. Once again, thank you for coming on the podcast today. You're most welcome. I'm sure your wisdom is amazing, and so sharing that with our listeners I really appreciate that. And I'm sure we will see you again soon. And those who are interested in Nikola's program, I'm going to put this all information in the show notes, so you can click on Adore Yoga's website. You can go and have a look at different things Nikola is offering. And you might see me there as your teacher one of the courses.
There's some pictures of you there, Sunita, looking good.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. Have a beautiful day. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate that you're taking this time out of your day. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care. Bye for now.